Hello and welcome to another Unlucky Stream. I'm your host today, the Unlucky Angel Star, and we are back doing our readings of Percy Jackson. Yes, it's been a while since I've actually done these. It's a little complicated why I came to the stream. It's personal. But to recap those who don't remember, we finally are announced, or it was finally revealed, who Percy's father truly is. And it's none other than Poseidon, the god of the sea. Greek god, to be more precise. But considering this is Percy Jackson, I think a lot of people already knew that, so why did I bother explaining it? But they finally revealed it into the book, so it kind of goes into the story, so on and so forth. So, without further ado, let's get reading. Luckily, I have it bookmarked, so where we last took off. We are now on Chapter 9. I am offered a quest. The next morning, Chiron moved me to Cabin 3. I didn't have to share with anybody. I had plenty of room for all myself. The Minotaur's horn, one set of spare clothes, and a toiletry bag. I got to sit at my own dinner table, pick all my own activities, call lights out whenever I felt like it, and not listen to anybody else. And I was absolutely miserable. Just when I started to feel accepted, to feel I had a home in Cabin 11, and I might be a normal kid, or as normal as you can be when you're a half-blood, I'd be separated out as if I had some rare disease. Nobody mentioned the Hellhound, but I got the feeling they were all talking about it behind my back. And... Nope. Sorry, I always keep losing my spot. The attack had scared everybody. It sent two messages. One, that I was the son of the sea god, and two, monsters would stop at nothing to kill me. They could even invade a camp that had always been considered safe. The other campers steered clear of me as much as possible. Cabin 11 was too nervous to have sword class with me. After what I'd done to the Ares folks in the woods, so my lessons with Luke became one-on-one. He pushed me harder than ever, and I wasn't afraid to bruise me up in the process. You're going to need all the training you can get, he said, as we were working with swords and flaming torches. Now, let's try that viper beheading strike again. 50 more repetitions. Annabeth still taught me Greek in the mornings, but she seemed distracted. Every time I said something, she scowled at me, as if I had just poked her between the eyes. After lessons, she would walk away muttering to herself. Quest? Poseidon? Dirty, rotten, got to make a plan. Even Clarice kept her distance, though her venomous looks made it clear she wanted to kill me for breaking her magic spear. I wish she'd just yell or punch me or something. I'd rather get into fights every day than be ignored. I knew somebody at camp resented me, because one night I came into my cabin and found a mortal newspaper dropped inside the doorway. A copy of the New York Daily News, open to the Metro page. The article took me almost an hour to read because the angrier I got, the more the words floated around on the page. Boy and mother still missing after freak car accident by Elaine Smith. Oh boy, this is not going to get pretty. Sally Jackson and son Percy are still missing 1 week after their mysterious disappearance. The family's badly burned 78 Camaro was discovered last Saturday on a North Long Island road with the roof ripped off and front axle broken. The car had flipped and skidded for several hundred feet before exploding. Mother and son had gone for a weekend vacation to Montauk. but left hastily, under mysterious circumstances. Small traces of blood were found in the car near the scene of the wreck. There were no other signs of the missing Jacksons. Residents of the Rule era reported seeing nothing unusual around the time of the accident. Miss Jackson's husband, Gabe Ogliano, still in claims that his stepson, Percy Jackson, is a troubled child who had been kicked out of numerous boarding schools and has expressed violent tendencies in the past. Police would not say whether son Percy is a suspect in his mother's disappearance, but they had not ruled out foul play. Below are recent pictures of Sally Jackson and Percy. Police urge anyone with information to call the following toll-free Crime Stoppers hotline. Oh yeah, that used to be a thing. I totally forgot. Phone number was circled in black marker. I wadded up the paper and threw it away, then flopped down in my bunk bed in the middle of my empty cabin. Lights out, and told myself miserably. That night, I had my worst dream yet. I was running along the beach in a storm. This time, there was a city behind me. Not New York. The sprawl was different. Buildings spread farther apart, palm trees and low hills in the distance. About 100 yards down the surf, two men were fighting. They looked like TV wrestlers, muscular, like beards, with beards and long hair. Both wore flowing Greek tunics, one trimmed in blue, the other in green. They grappled with each other, wrestled, kicked, and headbutted. Every time they connected, lightning flashed, the sky grew darker, and the wind rose. I had to stop them. I didn't know why, but the harder I ran, the more the wind blew me back, till I was running in place, my heels digging uselessly in the sand. Over the roar of the storm, I could hear the blue-robed one yelling at the green-robed one, "Give it back, give it back," like a kindergartner fighting over a toy. The waves got bigger, crashing into the beach, spraying me with salt. I yelled, "Stop it, stop fighting." The ground shook. Laughter came from somewhere under the earth, and a voice so deep and evil it turned my blood to ice. "Calm down, little bro," the voice crooned. "Calm down." The sand split beneath me, opening a crevice straight down to the center of the earth. My feet slipped, and darkness swallowed me. The darkness swallowed me. I woke up. Sure, I was falling. I was still in bed in cabin 3. My body told me it was morning, but it was dark outside, and thunder rolled across the hills. A storm was brewing. I hadn't dreamed that. I heard a clopping sound at the door, a hoof knocking at the door. "Come in." Grover trod inside, looking worried. "Mr. D wants to see you." "Why?" "He wants to kill... I'd better let him tell you." Nervously, I got dressed and followed. Sure that I was in huge trouble. For days, I had been half expecting the summons to the big house. Now that I was declared a son of Poseidon, one of the big 3 gods who weren't supposed to have kids, I figured it was a crime for me just to be alive. The other gods had probably been debating the best way to punish me for existing, and now Mr. D was ready to deliver their verdict. Over Long Island Sound, the sky looks like ink soup covering to a boil. A hazy curtain of rain was coming in our direction. I asked Grover if we needed an umbrella. "No," he said. "It never rains here unless we want it to." I pointed at the storm. "What the heck is that then?" He glanced uneasily at the sky. "It'll pass around us. Bad weather always does." I realized he was right. In a week I'd been there, it had never ever been overcast. The few rain clouds I'd seen had skirted right around the edges of the village. But this storm, this one was huge. At the volleyball pit, the kids at the Paulos cabins were playing a morning game against the satyrs. Denosius twins were walking around in the strawberry fields, making the plants grow. Everybody was going about their normal business, but they looked tense. They kept their eyes on the storm. Grover and I walked up to the front of the porch of the big house. Denosius sat at the pinnacle table in his tiger-striped Hawaiian shirt with his Diet Coke, just as he had on my first day. Chiron sat across the table in his fake wheelchair. They were playing against invisible opponents, two sets of cards hovering in the air. "Well, well," Mr. D said without looking up. "A little celebrity." I waited. "Come closer." I don't know why, I can picture Mr. D being played by Danny DeVito. Anyone else agree? Mr. "And don't expect me to no toe to you, mortal, just because old Barnacle-beard's your father." A net of lightning flashed across the clouds. Thunder shook the windows of the house. "Blah, blah, blah," Denosius said. Chiron feigned interest on his pinnacle cards. Grover cowered by the railing, his hooves clopping back and forth. "If I had my way," Denosius said, "I would cause your molecules to erupt in flames. We'd sweep up the ashes and be done with a lot of trouble. But Chiron seems to feel this would be against my mission at this cursed camp, to keep you little brats safe from harm." "Spontaneous combustion is a form of harm, Mr. D," Chiron put in. "Nonsense," Denosius said. "Boy wouldn't feel a thing. Nevertheless, I've agreed to restrain myself. I'm thinking of turning you into a dolphin instead. Send you back to your father." "Mr. D," Chiron warned. "All right," Denosius relented. "There's one more option, but it's deadly foolishness." Denosius rose, and the invisible playing cards dropped to the table. "I'm off to Olympus for an emergency meeting. If the boy is still here when I get back, I'll turn him into an Atlantic bottlenose. Do you understand? And Percy Jackson, if you're at all smart, you'll see that's a much more sensible choice than what Chiron feels you must do." Denosius picked up a playing card, twisted it, and it became a plastic rectangle. A credit card? No. A security pass. He snapped his fingers. The air seemed to fold and bend around him. He became a hologram, then a wind. Then he was gone, leaving only a smell of fresh pressed grapes lingering behind. Chiron smiled at me, but he looked tired and strained. Sit, Percy, please. And Grover." We did. Chiron laid his cards on the table, a winning hand he had gotten to use. He hadn't gotten to use. Silly me. "Tell me, Percy," he said, "what do you make of the Hellhound?" Just hearing the name made me shudder. Chiron probably wanted me to say, "Heck, it was nothing. I eat hellhounds for breakfast," but I didn't feel like lying. "It scared me," I said. "If you hadn't shot it, I'd be dead." "You'll meet worse, Percy. Far worse before you're done." "Done? With what?" "Your quest, of course. Will you accept it?" I glanced at Grover, who was crossing his fingers. Sir?" I said. "You haven't told me what it is yet." Charon grimaced. "Well, that's the hard part. The details." Thunder rumbled across the valley. The storm clouds had now reached the edge of the beach. As far as I could see, the sky and the sea boiling together. Poseidon and Zeus? I said. "They're fighting over something valuable. Something that was stolen, aren't they?" Chiron and Grover exchanged looks. Chiron sat forward in his wheelchair. "How did you know that?" My face felt hot. I wish I hadn't opened my big mouth. "The weather since Christmas has been weird, like the sea and the sky are fighting. Then I talked to Annabeth, and she'd overheard something about a theft. And I've been having these dreams." "I knew it!" Grover said. "Hush, Satyr," Chiron ordered. But it is his quest. Grover's eyes were bright in excitement. It must be. Only the Oracle can determine. Chiron stroked his bristly beard. Nevertheless, Percy, you are correct. Your father and Zeus having their worst quarrel in centuries. They are fighting over something valuable that was stolen. To be precise, a lightning bolt. I laughed nervously. A what? Do not take this lightly, Chiron warned. I am not talking about some tin-foil covered zigzag you see in a second-grade play. I'm talking about a 2-foot-long cylinder of high-grade celestial bronze, capped with both ends with god-level explosives. Oh. Zeus's Master Bolt, Chiron said, getting worked up now. The symbol of his power from which all other lightning bolts are patterned. The first weapon made by the Cyclops for the war against the Titans. The bolt that sheared the top off Mount Etna and hurled Kronos from his throne. The Master Bolt, which packs enough power to make mortal hydrogen bombs look like firecrackers. And it's missing? Stolen, Chiron said. By who? By whom? Chiron corrected. Once a teacher, always a teacher. By you. My mouth fell open. At least, Chiron held up a hand, that's what Zeus thinks. During the winter solstice at the last council of the gods, Zeus and Poseidon had an argument. The usual nonsense. Mother Rhea always liked you best. Air disasters are more spectacular than sea disasters, etc. Afterwards, Zeus realized his Master Bolt was missing, taken from the throne room under his very nose. He immediately blamed Poseidon. Now a god cannot usurp another god's symbol of power directly. That is forbidden by the most ancient of divine laws. But Zeus believes your father convinced a human hero to take it. But I didn't. Patience and listen, child, Chiron said. Zeus has good reason to be suspicious. The forges of the Cyclops are under the ocean, which gives Poseidon some influence over the makers of his brother's lightning. Zeus believes Poseidon has taken the Master Bolt and is now secretly having the Cyclops build an arsenal of illegal copies which might be used to topple Zeus from his throne. The only thing Zeus wasn't sure about was which hero Poseidon used to steal the bolt. Now Poseidon has openly claimed you as his son. You were in New York over the winter holidays. You could easily have snuck into Olympus. Zeus believes he has found his thief. His lightning thief. Okay, I'll shut. Okay, moving on. But I've never been to Olympus. Zeus is crazy. Chiron and Grover glanced nervously at the sky. Clouds didn't seem to be parting around us, as Grover had promised. They were rolling straight over the valley, stealing us in like a coffin lid. Percy? Grover said. You don't use the C word to describe the Lord of the Sky. Perhaps paranoid, Chiron suggests. Then again, Poseidon has tried to unseat Zeus before. I believe that was question 38 on your final exam? He looked at me as if he'd actually expected me to remember question 38. How could anyone accuse me of stealing a god's weapon? I couldn't even steal a slice of pizza from Gabe's poker party without getting busted. Chiron was waiting for an answer. Something about a golden net, I guess? Poseidon and Hera and a few other gods, they trapped Zeus and wouldn't let him out until he promised to be a better ruler, right? Correct, Chiron said. And Zeus has never trusted Poseidon since. Of course, Poseidon denies stealing the Master Bolt. He took great offense at the accusation. The two have been arguing back and forth for months, threatening war, and now you come along. The proverbial last straw. But I'm just a kid. Percy, Grover cut in. If you were Zeus and you already thought your brother was plotting to overthrow you, and your brother suddenly admitted he had broken the sacred oath that he took after World War II, that he's fathered a new mortal hero who might be used as a weapon against you, wouldn't that put a twist in your toga? But I didn't do anything. Besides my dad, he didn't really have this Master Boltstorm, did he? Chiron sighed. Most thinking observers would agree that thievery is not Poseidon's style. But the sea god is too proud to try convincing Zeus of that. Zeus has demanded that Poseidon return the bolt by the summer solstice. That's June 21st, 10 days from now. Poseidon wants an apology for being called a thief by the same date. I hope that diplomacy might prevail, that Hera or Demeter or Hestia would make the two brothers see sense. But your arrival has inflamed Zeus's temper. Now neither god will back down. Unless someone intervenes, unless the Master Bolt is found and returned to Zeus before the solstice, there will be war. And do you know what a full-fledged war would look like, Percy? Bad, I guessed. Imagine the world in chaos. Nature at war with itself. Olympians forced to choose sides between Zeus and Poseidon. Destruction, carnage, millions dead. Western civilization turned into a battleground so big, it'll make the Trojan War look like a water balloon fight. Bad, I repeated. And you, Percy Jackson, will be the first to feel Zeus' wrath. It started to rain. Volleyball players stopped their game and stared in stunned silence at the sky. I had brought this storm to Half-Blood Hill. Zeus was punishing the whole camp because of me. I was furious. So I have to find the stupid bolt, I said, and return it to Zeus? What better peace offering? Chiron said. Then to have the son of Poseidon return Zeus's property. If Poseidon doesn't have it, where is the thing? I believe I know. Chiron's expression was grim. Part of a prophecy I had years ago. Well, some of the lines make sense to me now, but before I can say no more. You must officially take up the quest. You must seek the Council of the Oracle. Why can't you tell me where the bolt is beforehand? Because if I did, you would be too afraid to accept the challenge. I swallowed. Good reason. You agree then? I looked at Grover, who nodded encouragingly. Easier for him. I was the one Zeus wanted to kill. Alright, I said. It's better than being turned into a dolphin. Then it's time you consulted the Oracle, Chiron said. Go upstairs, Percy Jackson, to the attic. When you come back down, assuming you're still sane, we will talk more. 4 flights up, the stairs ended under a green trapdoor. I pulled the cord, the door swung open. A wooden ladder clattered into place. The warm air from above smelled like mildew, and rotten wood and something else. A smell I remembered from biology class. Reptiles. The smell of snakes. I held my breath and climbed. The attic was filled with Greek hero junk, armor stands, covering and cobwebs, once bright shields pitted with rust, old leather streamers trunks plastered with stickers saying Ithaca, Circle's Isle, and the land of the Amazons. One long table was stacked with glass jars filled with pickled things, severed hairy claws, huge yellow eyes, various other parts of monsters. I think it should be actually and various other parts of monsters. So that might be a typo in my book. A dusty mounted trophy on the wall. Looked like a giant snake's head, but the horns and a full set of shark's teeth. The plaque read, Hydra Head Number 1, Woodstock, New York, 1969. By the window, sitting on a wooden tripod stool, I was the most gruesome memento of all. A mummy. Not the wrapped in cloth kind, but a human female body shriveled into a husk. She wore a tie-dyed sundress, lots of beaded necklaces, and a headband over her long black hair. The skin of her face was thin and leathery over her skull, and her eyes were glassy white slits, as if the real eyes had been replaced with marbles. She'd been dead a long, long time. Looking at her sent chills up my back, and that was before she sat up on her stool and opened her mouth. A green mist pouted from the mummy's mouth, coiling over the floor in thick tendrils, hissing like 20,000 snakes. I stumbled over myself, trying to get to the trapdoor, but it slammed shut. Inside my head, I heard a voice, slithering into one ear and coiling around my brain. I am the spirit of Delphi, speaker of the prophecies of Phoebus Apollo, slayer of the mighty Python. Approach, seeker, and ask. I want to say, no thanks, wrong door. Just looking for the bathroom. But I forced myself to take a breath. The mummy wasn't alive. She was some kind of gruesome receptacle. Yeah, receptacle for something else. The power that was now swirling around me in the green mist, but its presence didn't feel evil. Like my demonic math teacher, Mrs. Dodds, or the Minotaur. It felt more like the three fates I'd seen knitting in the yarn outside the highway fruit stand. Ancient, powerful, and definitely not human. But not particularly interested in killing me either. I got up the courage to ask, what is my destiny? The mist swirled more quickly, collecting right in front of me and around the table with the panic monster parts jars. Suddenly, there were 4 men sitting around the table, playing cards. Their faces became clearer. It was Smelly Gabe and his buddies. My fist clenched, though I knew this poker party couldn't be real. It was an illusion, made out of mist. Gabe turned toward me and spoke in a rasping voice of the oracle. You shall go west and face the god who has turned. His buddy on the right looked up and said in the same voice, You shall find what was stolen and see it safely returned. The guy on the left threw in 2 poker chips and said, You shall be betrayed by one who calls you a friend. Finally, Eddie, our building super, delivered the worst line of all. And you shall fail to save what matters most in the end. The figures began to dissolve. At first, I was too stunned to say anything, but as the mist retreated, coiling into a huge green serpent, slithering back into the mouth of a mummy, I cried, Wait, what do you mean? What friend? What will I fail to save? The tail of the mist snake disappeared into the mummy's mouth. I reclined back against the wall, her mouth closed tight, as if I hadn't been opened in 100 years. The attic was silent again, abandoned, nothing but a room full of mementos. I got the feeling that I could stand here until I had cobwebs too. I wouldn't learn anything else. My audience with the oracle was over. Well? Giron asked me. I slumped into a chair at the pinnacle table. She said I would retrieve what was stolen. Grover sat forward, chewing excitedly on the remains of a Diet Coke can. That's great! What did the Oracle say exactly? Chiron pressed. This is important. My ears were tingling from the reptilian voice. She said I would go west and face a god who had turned. I would retrieve what was stolen and see it safely returned. I knew it! Chiron didn't look satisfied. Anything else? I didn't want to tell him. What friend would betray me? I didn't have that many. And the last line, I would fail to save what mattered most. What kind of oracle would send me on a quest and tell me, oh, by the way, you'll fail? How could I confess that? No, that's about it. He studied my face. Very well, Percy, but know this. The oracle's words often have double meanings. Don't dwell on them too much. The truth is not always clear until events come to pass. I got the feeling he knew I was holding back something bad. He was trying to make me feel better. Okay, I said, anxious to change topics. So, where do I go? Who's this god in the west? Think, Percy. If Zeus and Poseidon weaken each other in war, who stands to gain? Somebody else who wants to take over. I guess. Yes, quite. Someone who harbors a grudge, who has been unhappy with his lot since the world was divided eons ago. Whose kingdom would grow powerful with the deaths of millions. Someone who hates his brothers for forcing him into an oath to have no more children, an oath that both of them have now broken. I thought about my dreams, the evil voice that had spoken from under the ground. Hades. Chiron nodded. The Lord of the Dead is the only possibility. A scrap of aluminum dribbled out of Grover's mouth. Wait, what? A fury came after Percy, Chiron reminded him. She watched the young man until she was sure of his identity, and then tried to kill him. Furies obey only one lord, Hades. Yes, but Hades hates all heroes, Grover protested, especially if he has found out Percy is the son of Poseidon. A hellhound got into the forest, Chiron continued. Those can only be summoned from the fields of punishment, and it had to be summoned by someone within the camp. Hades must have a spy here. He must suspect Poseidon will try to use Percy to clear his name. Hades would very much like to kill this young half-blood before he can take on the quest. Great. That's two major gods who want to kill me. But a quest to... Grover swallowed. I mean, couldn't the Master Bolt be in some place like Maine? Maine's very nice this time of year. Hades sent a minion to steal the Master Bolt, Chiron insisted. He hid it in the underworld, knowing full well that Zeus would blame Poseidon. I don't pretend to understand the Lord of Death's motives perfectly, or why he chose this time to start a war. But one thing is certain. Percy must go to the underworld, find the Master Bolt, not Volt, and reveal the truth. A strange fire burned in my stomach. The weirdest thing was, it wasn't fear. It was anticipation. Desire for revenge. Hades had tried to kill me 3 times so far, with the Fury, the Minotaur, and the Hellhound. It was his fault my mother had disappeared in a flash of light. Now he was trying to frame me and my dad for a theft he hadn't committed. I was ready to take him on. Besides, if my mother was in the underworld, whoa boy, said a small part of my brain that was still saying, "You're a kid. Hades is a god." Grover was trembling. He started eating pinnacle cards like potato chips. The poor guy needed to complete a quest with me so he could get his searcher's license, whatever that was. But how could I ask him to do this quest, especially when the Oracle said I was destined to fail? This was suicide.
Look, if we know it's Hades,
Oh, no, wait, that's Percy saying it. Look, if we know it's Hades, I told Chiron, why can't we just tell the other gods? Zeus or Poseidon can go down to the underworld and bust some heads.
Suspecting and knowing are not the same, Chiron said. Besides, even if the other gods suspect Hades, and I imagine Poseidon does, they couldn't retrieve the vault themselves. Gods cannot cross each other's territories except by invitation. That is another ancient rule. Heroes, on the other hand, have certain privileges. They can go anywhere, challenge anyone as long as they're bold enough and strong enough to do it. No god can be held responsible for a hero's actions. Why do you think the gods always operate through humans?
You're saying I'm being used.
I'm saying it's no accident Poseidon has claimed you now. It's a very risky gamble, but he's in a desperate situation. He needs you.
My dad needs me? Emotions rolled around inside me like bits of glass in a kaleidoscope. I don't know whether to feel resentful or grateful or happy or angry. Poseidon had ignored me for 12 years. Now suddenly he needed me? I looked at Chiron. You've known I was Poseidon's son all along, haven't you?
I've had my suspicion. As I've said, I've spoken to the Oracle too.
I get the feeling there was a lot he wasn't telling me about this prophecy, but I decided I couldn't worry about the right now. After all, I was holding back information too. So let me get this straight, I said. I'm supposed to go to the underworld and confront the Lord of the Dead. Check. Find the most powerful weapon in the universe. Check. And get back to Olympus before the summer solstice in 10 days.
That's about right.
You know, I feel like that's going to be like a line they're going to use in the series trailer. I'm pretty certain of it. I looked at Grover, who gulped down the Ace of Hearts. Did I mention that Maine is a very nice this time of year? He asked weakly.
You don't have
to go, I told him. I can't ask that of you. Oh? He shifted his hoods. No, it's just that satyrs and underground places, well... He took a deep breath, then stood, brushing the shredded cards of aluminum bits off his t-shirt. You saved my life, Percy. If you're serious about wanting me along, I won't let you down. I felt so relieved I wanted to cry, though I didn't think that would be very heroic. Grover was the only friend I'd ever had for longer than a few months. I wasn't sure what good a satyr could do against the forces of the dead, but I felt better knowing he'd be with me. All the way, G-Man. I turned to Chiron. So where do we go? The Oracle just said to go west.
The entrance to the underworld is always in the west. It moves from age to age, just like Olympus. Right now, of course, it's in America.
Where? Chiron looked surprised.
I thought that would be obvious enough. The entrance to the underworld is in Los Angeles.
Oh? Naturally, so we just get on a plane. No! Grover shrieked. Percy, what are you thinking? Have you ever been on a plane in your life? I shook my head, feeling embarrassed. My mom had never taken me anywhere by plane. She's always said we didn't have the money. Besides, your parents had died in a plane crash. Percy, think. You are the son of the sea god. Your father's bitterest rival is Zeus, lord of the sky. Your mother knew better than to trust you in an airplane. You would be in Zeus's domain. You'd never come back down again alive. Overhead lightning crackled. Thunder boomed. Okay, I said, determined not to look at the storm. So I'll travel overland.
That's right, Chiron said. 2 companions may accompany you. Grover is one. The other has already volunteered. if you'll accept her help.
Gee, I said, feigning surprise. Who else would be stupid enough to volunteer for a quest like this? Air shimmered behind Chiron. Annabeth became visible, stuffing her Yankees cap into her back pocket. I have been waiting a long time for a quest. Seaweed brain, she said. Athena is no fan of Poseidon, but if you're going to save the world, I'm the best person to keep from messing up. If you do say so yourself, I said. I suppose you have a plan, wise girl? Her cheeks colored. Do you want my help or not? Truth was, I did. I needed all the help I could get. A trio, I said. That'll work.
Excellent. This afternoon, we can take you as far as the bus terminal in Manhattan. After that, you are on your own.
Lightning flashed. Rain poured down on the meadows that were never supposed to have violent weather. No time to waste, Chiron said.
Wait, no time to waste. I think you all should get packing.
All right, we have finished chapter 9. Now this is the mandatory part of the stream where everyone takes a few minute breaks to kick back, relax, and do whatever. I'm going to get a drink of water. So, enjoy your free time. And we are back for another streaming adventure. Well, I guess we're just back to reading. We're back where we continued, where we left off, which is... Well, I'm gonna see how far we've gotten since starting this little reading frenzy. I hope you all have been enjoying it, because honestly, I've been kind of liking it quite a bit. As we are now in chapter 10. I ruin a perfectly good bus. It didn't take me long to pack. I decided to leave the Minotaur horn in the cabin, which left me only an extra change of clothes and a toothbrush to stuff in a backpack Grover had found for me. The camp store loaned me $100 in mortal money and 20 gold drachmas. These coins were as big as Girl Scout cookies and had images of various Greek gods stamped on one side of the Empire State Building on the other. The ancient mortal drachmas had been silver, Chiron told us, but Olympians never used less than pure gold. Chiron said the coins might come in handy for non-mortal transactions, whatever that meant. He gave Annabeth and me each a canteen of nectar and a Ziploc bag full of ambrosia squares, to be used only in emergencies. If we were seriously hurt, it was god food, Chiron reminded us. It would cure us of almost any injury, but it was lethal to mortals. Too much of it would make a half-blood very, very feverish. An overdose would burn us up literally. Annabeth was bringing her Magic Yankees cap. Which, she told me, had been a 12th birthday present from her mom. She carried a book on famous classical architecture, written in ancient Greek, to read when she got bored, and a long bronze knife hidden in her shirt sleeve. I was sure the knife would get us busted the first time we went through a metal detector. Grover wore his fake feet and his pants to pass up as human. He wore a green Rasta-style cap because when it rained, his curly hair flattened and you could see the tips of his horns. His bright orange backpack was full of scrap metal and apples to snack on. In his pocket was a set of reed pipes his daddy goat had carved for him, even though he only knew 2 songs, Mozart Piano Concerto No. 12 and Hilary Duff's So Yesterday, both of which sounded pretty bad on reed pipes. We waved goodbye to the other campers, took one last look at the strawberry fields, the ocean, and the big house, then hiked up Half-Blood Hill to the tall pine tree that used to be Thalia, daughter of Zeus. Chiron was waiting for us in his wheelchair. Next to him stood the surfer dude I'd seen when I was recovering in the sick room. According to Grover, the guy was the camp's head of security. He supposedly had eyes all over his body, so he could never be surprised. Today, though, he was wearing a chauffeur's uniform, so I could only see extra peepers on his hands, face, and neck.
This is August, he told me. He'll drive you into the city, and, keep an eye on things.
I heard footsteps behind us. Luke came running up the hill, carrying a pair of basketball shoes. "Hey," he panted. "Glad I caught you." Annabeth blushed, the way she always did when Luke was around. "I just want to say good luck," Luke told me. And I thought, maybe you could use these. He handed me those sneakers, which looked pretty normal. They even smelled kind of normal. Luke said, "Maya." White bird's wings sprouted out of the heels, startling me so much. I dropped them. The shoes flapped around on the ground until the wings folded up, disappeared. "Awesome!" Luke smiled. "Those served me well when I was on my quest. Gift from Dad, of course. I don't use them much these days." His expression turned sad. I didn't know what to say. It was cool enough that Luke had come to say goodbye. I've been afraid he might resent me for getting so much attention the last few days. But here he was giving me a magic gift. It made me blush almost as much as Annabeth. Hey man, I said. Thanks. Listen, Percy. Luke looked uncomfortable. A lot of hopes are riding on you, so just kill some monsters for me, okay? We shook hands. Luke patted Grover's head because his horns just gave a goodbye hug to Annabeth, who looked like she might pass out. Then gave a goodbye hug to Annabeth, who looked like she about to pass out. After Luke was gone, I told her, "You're hyperventilating." Am not. You let him capture the flag instead of you, didn't you? Oh, why do you want to go anywhere? Why do I want to go anywhere with you, Percy? She stomped down the other side of the hill where a white SUV waited on the shoulder of the road. Argus followed, jingling his car keys. I picked up the flying shoes and then a sudden bad feeling. I looked at Chiron. I won't be able to use these, will I? He shook his head.
Luke meant well, Percy, but taking to the air, that would not be wise for you.
I nodded, disappointed, but then I got an idea. Hey Grover, you want a magic item? His eyes lit up. Me? Pretty soon, we laced the sneakers on his fake feet, and the world's first flying goat boy was ready to launch. Maya! Shout. He got off the ground okay, but then fell over sideways, so his backpack dragged through the grass. The winged shoes kept buckling up and down like tiny broncos.
Practice,
Chiron called after him.
You just need practice.
It just says, ah. Grover went flying sideways down the hill like a possessed lawnmower, heading towards the van. I can't wait to see how I really hope they do adapt this properly. Before I could follow, Chiron caught my arm.
I should have trained you better, Percy,
He said.
If only I had more time. Hercules, Jason, they all got more training.
That's okay. I just wish I saw myself because I was about to sound like a brat. I was wishing my dad had given me a cool magic item to help on the quest. Something as good as Luke's flying shoes or Annabeth's invisible cap.
What am I thinking? Said, I can't let you get away without this.
He pulled a pen from his coat pocket and handed it to me. It was an ordinary disposable ballpoint black pen, removable cap. Probably cost 30 cents. Gee, I said, thanks.
Percy, that's a gift from your father. I have kept it for years, not knowing you were the one who I was waiting for. But the prophecy is clear to me now. You are the one.
And not the Matrix one. I remember the field trip to the Metropolitan Museum of Arts. When I'd vaporized Mrs. Dodds, she ran to throw me a pen that turned into a sword. Could this be? I took off the cap, and the pen grew longer and heavier in my hand. In half a second, I held a shimmering bronze sword with a double-edged blade, a leather-wrapped grist, and a flat hilt riveted with gold studs. It was the first weapon that actually felt balanced in my hand.
The sword has a long and tragic history that we need not go into.
Chiron told me
its name is Anklusmos,
Riptide. I translated, surprised the ancient Greek came so easily.
Use it only for emergencies,
Chiron said,
and only against monsters. No hero should harm mortals unless absolutely necessary. Of course, the sword wouldn't harm them in any case.
I looked at the wickedly sharp blade. What do you mean it wouldn't harm mortals? How could it not?
The sword is celestial bronze, forged by the Cyclops, tempered in the heart of Mount Etna, cooled in the river Lith. It's deadly to monsters, to any creature from the underworld, provided they don't kill you first. But the blade will pass through mortals like an illusion. They simply are not important enough for the blade to kill. And I should warn you, as a demigod, you can be killed by either celestial or normal weapons. You're twice as vulnerable.
Good to know.
Now recap the pen.
I touched the pen cap to the sword tip. Instantly, Riptide shrank to the ballpoint pen again. I tucked it in my pocket, a little nervous because I was famous for losing pens at school.
You can't,
Chiron said. Can't what?
lose the pen.
I said.
It is enchanted. It will always reappear in your pocket. Try it.
I was worried, but I threw the pen as far as I could down the hill and watched it disappear in the grass.
It may take a few moments.
Chiron told me.
Now, check your pocket.
Sure enough, the pen was there. Okay, that's extremely cool. But what if a mortal sees me pulling out a sword? Chiron smiled.
Mist is a powerful thing, Percy.
Miss.
Yes. Read the Iliad. It's full of references to the stuff. Whenever divine or monstrous elements mix with the mortal world, they generate mist, which obscures the vision of humans. You will see these just as they are, being a half-blood, but humans will interpret them quite differently. Remarkable, really, the lengths of which humans will go to fit things into their version of reality.
I put Riptide back in my pocket. For the first time, the quest felt real. I was actually leaving Half-Blood Hill. I was heading west with no adult supervision, no backup plan, not even a cell phone. Chiron said cell phones were traceable by monsters. If we used one, it would be worse than sending up a flare. I had no weapon stronger than a sword to fight off monsters and reach the land of the dead. Chiron said, when you say gods are immortal, I mean, there was a time before them, right?
4 ages before them, actually. The time of the Titans was the 4th age, sometimes called the Golden Age, which is definitely a misdemeanor. The time of Western civilization and the rule of Zeus, is the 5th age.
So, what was it like before the gods? Chiron pursued his lips.
Even I'm not old enough to remember that, child, but I know it was a time of darkness and savagery for mortals. Kronos, the lord of the Titans, called his reign the Golden Age because men lived innocent and free of all knowledge. But that was mere propaganda. The Titan King cared nothing for your kind except as appetizers or a source of cheap entertainment. It was only in early reign of Lord Zeus when Prometheus the good Titan brought fire to mankind that your species began to progress. And even then, Prometheus was branded a radical thinker. Zeus punished him severely, as you may recall. Of course, eventually the gods warmed to humans, and Western civilization was born.
But the gods can't die now, right? I mean, as long as Western civilization is alive, they're alive, so even if I fail them, nothing could happen so bad it would mess up everything, right? Chiron gave me a melancholy smile.
No one knows how long the age of the West will last, Percy. The gods are immortal, yes, but then so are the Titans. They still exist, locked away in their various prisons, forced to endure endless pain and punishment, reduced in power, but still very much alive. May the fates forbid the gods should ever suffer such a doom. or that we should ever return to this darkness and chaos of the past. All we can do, child, is follow our destiny.
Our destiny. Assuming you know what that is.
Relax, Huron told me. Keep a clear head, and remember you may be about to prevent the biggest war in human history.
Relax, I said. I'm very relaxed. When I got to the bottom of the hill, I looked back. Under the pine tree that used to be Thalia, daughter of Zeus, Chiron was now standing in full horseman form, holding his bow high in salute. Just your typical summer camp send-off by your typical centaur. Argus drove us out of the countryside and entered western Long Island. It felt weird to be on a highway again. Annabeth and Grover are sitting next to me as if we were normal carpoolers. After 2 weeks at Half-Blood, the real world seemed like a fantasy. I found myself staring at every McDonald's, every kid in the back of a parent's car, every billboard and shopping mall. So far so good, I told Annabeth. 10 miles and not a single monster. She gave me an irritated look. It's bad luck to talk like that way, seaweed brain. Remind me again, why do you hate me so much? I don't hate you. Could have fooled me. She folded her cap of invisibility. Look, we're just not supposed to get along, okay? Parents are rivals. Why? She sighed. How many reasons do you want? One time my mom caught Poseidon with his girlfriend in Athens, in Athena's temple, which is hugely disrespectful. Another time, Athena and Poseidon competed to be the patron god of the city for Athens. Your dad created some stupid saltwater spring for his gift. My mother created the olive tree. People saw that her gift was better, so they named the city after her. They must really like olives. Oh, forgive it. Now she invented pizza, that I could understand. I said, forget it. In the front seat, Argus smiled. He didn't say anything, but one blue eye in the back of his neck winked at me. Traffic slowed us down in Queens. By the time we got into Manhattan, it was sunset and starting to rain. Argus dropped us at the Greyhound station on the Upper East Side, not far from my mom and Gabe's apartment. Tapped to a mailbox with a soggy flyer with my picture on it. Have you seen this boy? I ripped it down before Annabeth and Grover could notice. Argus unloaded our bags, made sure we got our bus tickets, and drove away. The eye on the back of his head opening to watch as if he pulled us out of the parking lot. I thought about how close I was to my old apartment. On a normal day, my mom would be home from the candy store by now. Well, Gabe was probably up there right now playing poker, not even missing her. Grover shouldered his backpack, gazed down the street in the direction I was looking. You want to know why she married him, Percy? I stared at him. Were you reading my mind or something? Just your emotions, he shrugged. Yes, I forgot to tell you satyrs can do that. You were thinking about your mom and your stepdad, right? I nodded, wondering what else Grover might have forgotten to tell me. Your mom married Gabe for you. Never told me. You called him smelly, but you got no idea. The guy has this aura. Yuck. I can smell him from here. I can smell traces of him on you, and you haven't been near him for a week. Thanks, I said. Where's the nearest shower? You should be grateful, Percy. Your stepfather's smell, so repulsively human, he could mask the presence of any demigod. As soon as I took a whiff inside his Camaro, I knew Gabe had been covering your scent for years. If you hadn't lived with him every summer, you probably would have been found by monsters a long time ago. Your mom stayed with him to protect you. She was a smart lady. She must have loved you a lot to put up with that guy. If that makes you feel any better. It didn't, but I forced myself not to show it. I'll see her again, I thought. She isn't gone. I wondered if Grover could still read my emotions, mixed up as they were. I was glad he and Annabeth were with me, but I felt guilty that I hadn't been straight with them. I hadn't told them the real reason I said yes to this crazy quest. The truth was, I didn't care about retrieving Zeus's lightning bolt, or saving the world, or even helping my father out of trouble. The more I thought about it, I resented Poseidon for never visiting me, never helping my mom, never even sending a lousy child support check. He'd only claim me because he needed a job done. All I cared about was my mom. Hades had taken her unfairly, and Hades was going to give her back. You will be betrayed. Oh, this is the... You will be betrayed by one who calls you a friend. The oracle whispered in my mind. You will fail to save what matters most in the end. Shut up, I told it. The rain kept coming down. We got restless, waiting for the bus, and decided to play some hacky sack at one of Grover's apples. Annabeth was unbelievable. She could bounce the apple off her knee, her elbow, her shoulder, whatever. It wasn't too bad. I wasn't too bad myself. The game ended when I tossed the apple toward Grover, and it got too close to his mouth. In one mega goat bite, our hacky sack disappeared, core, stem, and all. Grover blushed. He tried to apologize, but Annabeth and I were too busy cracking up. Finally, the bus came. As we stood in line to board, Grover started looking around, sniffing the air like he smelled his favorite school cafeteria delicacy, enchiladas. What is it? I asked. I don't know, he said tensely. Maybe it's nothing. But I could tell it wasn't nothing. I started looking over my shoulder too. I was relieved when we finally got on board and found seats together in the back of the bus. We stowed our backpacks. Annabeth kept slapping her Yankee hat nervously around against her thigh. As the last passengers got on, Annabeth clamped her hand onto my knee. Percy. An old lady had just boarded the bus. She wore a crumbling velvet dress, lace gloves, and a shapeless orange knit hat that shadowed her face, and she carried a big paisley purse. When she tilted her head up, her black eyes glittered, and my heart skipped a beat. It was Mrs. Dodds, older, more withered, but differently the same evil face. I scrunched down in my seat. Behind her came two more old ladies, one in a green hat, one in a purple. Otherwise, they looked exactly like Mrs. Dodds. Same snarled hands, paisley handbags, wrinkled velvet dresses, triplet demon grandmothers. They sat in the front row, right behind the driver. The two on the aisle crossed their legs over the walkway, marking an X. It was casual enough, but it sent a clear message. Nobody leaves. The bus pulled out of the station, and we headed through the slick streets of Manhattan. She didn't stay dead long, I said, trying to keep my voice from quivering. I thought you said they could be dispelled for a lifetime. I said if you're lucky, and I said, you're obviously not. All three of them. De immortales. It's okay, Annabeth said, obviously thinking hard. The Furies, the three worst monsters in the underworld. No problem, no problem. We'll just slip out the windows. They don't open. The back exits? She suggested. There wasn't one. If there had been, it wouldn't have helped. By the time we were on 9th Avenue, heading for the Lunken Tunnel, they won't attack us with witnesses around, I said. Will they? Mortals don't have good eyes, Annabeth reminded me. Their brains can only process what they see through the mist. They'll see three old ladies killing us, won't they? Shut up. Hard to say, but we can't count on mortals for help. We have an emergency exit in the roof. We hit the Lincoln Tunnel, and the bus went dark except for the running lights down the aisle. It was eerily quiet without the sound of rain. Mrs. Dodds got up, in a flat voice, as if she'd rehearsed it. She announced to the whole bus, "I need to use the restroom." "So do I," said the second sister. "So do I," said the third sister. They all started coming down the aisle. I got it, Annabeth said. Percy, take my hat. What? You're the only one they want. Turn invisible and go up to the aisle. Let them pass you. Maybe you can get to the front and get away. But you guys, there's an outside chance they might not notice us. You're the son of the big three. Your smell might be overpowering. I can't just leave you. Don't worry about us, Grover said. Go! My hands trembled. I felt like a coward. I took the Yankees cap and put it on. When I looked down, my body wasn't there anymore. I started creeping up the aisle. I managed to get up 10 rows and duck into an empty seat just as the Furies walked past. Mrs. Dobbs stopped, sniffing, and looked straight at me. My heart was pounding. Apparently, she didn't see anything. She and her sisters kept going. I was free. I made it to the front of the bus. We were almost through the Lincoln Tunnel now. I was about to press the emergency stop when I heard a hideous wailing from the back row. The old ladies were not old ladies anymore. Their faces were still the same. I guess they couldn't get any uglier. But their bodies were shriveled into leathery brown hag bodies with bat wings and hands and feet like gargoyle claws. Their handbags had turned into fiery whips. The Furies surrounded Grover and Annabeth, lashing their whips, hissing, "Where is it? Where?" The other people on the bus were screaming, cowering in their seats. They saw something, all right. He's not here, Annabeth yelled. He's gone. The Furies raised their whips. Annabeth drew her bronze knife. Grover grabbed a tin can from his handbag and prepared to throw it. Smooth. What I did next was so impulsive and dangerous, I should have named ADHD Poster Child of the Year. The bus director was distracted, trying to see what was going on in his rearview mirror. Still invisible, I grabbed onto the wheel from him and jerked it to the left. Everybody howled as if they were thrown to the right, and I heard what I hoped was the sound of 3 Furies smashing against the window. Hey, the driver yelled. Hey, whoa! We wrestled for the wheel. The bus slammed against the side of the tunnel, grinding metal, throwing sparks a mile behind us. We careened out of the Lincoln Tunnel and back onto the rainstorm. People and monsters tossed around the bus. Cars plowed aside like bowling pins. Somehow the driver found an exit. We shot off the highway, through half a dozen traffic lights, and ended up barreling down one of those New Jersey rural roads where you can't believe there's so much nothing right across the river from New York. There were woods to the left, the Hudson River to the right, and the driver seemed to be veering toward the river. Another great idea. I hit the emergency brake. The bus wailed, spun a full circle on the wet asphalt, and crashed into the trees. The emergency lights came on, the door flew open, the bus driver was the first one out, the passengers yelling as they stampede after him. I stepped into the driver's seat and let them pass. Furies regained their balance. They lashed their whips at Annabeth while she waved her knife and yelled ancient Greek, telling them to back off. Grover threw tin cans. I looked at the open doorway. I was free to go, but I couldn't leave them. I took off the invisible cap. Hey! The Furies turned, baring their yellow fangs at me, and the exit suddenly seemed like an excellent idea. Mrs. Dodd stacked up the aisle, and she used to do in class, about to deliver my F- math test. Every time she flicked her whip, red flames danced along the barbed leather. Her 2 ugly sisters hopped on top of the seats on either side of her and crawled toward me like huge, nasty lizards. Perseus Jackson, Mrs. Dodd said in an accent that was definitely from somewhere farther south than Georgia. You have offended the gods. You shall die. I liked you better as a math teacher, I told her. She growled. Annabeth and Grover moved up behind the Furies cautiously, looking for an opening. I took the ballpoint pen out of my pocket and uncapped it. Riptide elongated into a shimmering double-edged sword. The Furies hesitated. Mrs. Dodds had felt Riptide's blade before. She obviously didn't like seeing it again. Submit now, and you will not suffer eternal torment. Nice try, I told her. Percy, look out, Annabeth cried. Mrs. Dodge lashed her rip around my sword, and while the Furies on the other side lunged at me, my hands felt as if they were wrapped like in molten lead, but I managed not to drop Riptide. I stuck the Fury on the left with a tilt, sending her toppling backwards into the seat. I turned and sliced the Fury on the right. As soon as the blade connected with her neck, she screamed and exploded into dust. Annabeth got Mrs. Dodds in a wrestler's hold and yanked her backward while Grover ripped the whip out of her hands. Ow, he yelled. Ow, hot, hot. The fury-eyed hilt slammed came at me again, talons ready, but I swung Riptide and she broke open like a piñata. Mrs. Dodds was trying to get Annabeth off her back. She kicked, clawed, hissed, and bit, but Annabeth held on while Grover got Mrs. Dodds' legs tied up by her own whip. Finally, they both shoved her backward into the aisle. Mrs. Dodds tried to get up, but she didn't have room to flap her bat wings, so she kept falling down. Zeus will destroy you, she promised. Hades will have your soul. Brachius mex veximene. Vesimini. Brachus mes vesimini, I yelled. I wasn't sure where the Latin came from. I think it meant eat my pants. Thunder shook the bus. The hair rose on the back of my neck. Get out, Annabeth yelled at me. Now! I didn't need any encouragement. We rushed outside and found the other passengers wandering into a daze, arguing with the driver or running around in circles. We're going to die. A Hawaiian-shirted tourist with a camera snapped my photograph before I could recap my sword. Our bags, Laura realized. We left our... Boom! The windows of the bus exploded as the passengers ran for cover. Lightning shredded a huge crater on the roof, but the angry wail from inside told me Mrs. Dodds was not yet dead. Run, Annabeth said. She's calling for reinforcements. We have to get out of here. We plunged into the woods as the rain poured down, the bus in flames behind us, and nothing but darkness ahead. Quite a chilling chapter, and we're going to get to another chapter in just a bit. So, it's time for another little break. So we'll be back in a few minutes, ladies and gentlemen.
All that I see now is not the same. All you remember has gone away, but you're still standing here. So much has happened, is It's hard to bear shadows of sadness within your stare, but still you're standing here. There beyond, the future's down the road, but the journey won't be easy. Rising up and standing on your own, with a beauty in your eyes shining. You have not lost a thing, whatever may come. The light of hope is always shining there in your heart. You've not lost a thing, whatever you do. Just know that your tomorrow will be waiting for you. Ever so precious, a vision shared, a future you promised. On that special day, still memories never fade. Friends of old, back from long ago, come again just to say hello. And it's something that you know. Find the strength that lies within your soul, and believe that you can do it. Rising up and standing on your own, with a beauty in your eyes shining. You have not lost a thing, whatever may come. The light of hope is always shining there in your heart. You've not lost a thing, whatever you do. Just know that your tomorrow will be waiting for you. Never have to give up, whatever may come. The light of hope is always shining there in your heart. Haven't lost anything, no matter what comes. I know inside that here is right where you always are. Sow a seed in the ground and let it know.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen, today. And of course, we'll be finishing off tonight with our third chapter. We visit the Guardian Gnome Emporium. So, let's get started. In a way, it's nice to know there are Greek gods out there, because we have somebody to blame when things go wrong. For instance, when you're walking away from a bus that's just been attacked by monster hags and blown up by lightning, and it's raining on top of everything else, most people might think it's really bad think that's just really bad luck. When you're a half-blood, you understand that some divine force really is trying to mess up your day. So there we were, Annabeth and Grover and I, walking through the woods along the New Jersey riverbank, the glow of New York City making the night sky yellow behind us, and the smell of the Hudson River reeking in our noses. Grover was shivering and braying, his big goat eyes turned slit-pupiled and full of terror. 3 kindling ones? All 3 at once? I was pretty much in shock myself. The explosion of bus windows still rang in my ears, but Annabeth kept pulling us along, saying, "Come on, the farther away we get, the better." All our money was back there, I reminded her. Our food and clothes, everything. Well, maybe if you hadn't decided to jump into the fight. What do you want me to do? Let you get killed? You didn't need to protect me, Percy. I would have been fine. Sliced like sandwich bread. Grover put in, but fine. Shut up, gut boy, said Annabeth. Grover berated mournfully. Tin cans, a perfectly good bag of tin cans. We sloshed across mushy ground, through nasty, twisted trees, and it smelled like sour laundry. Doesn't sound fun, that's for certain. And I lost my spot again. Oh, no, never mind, I found it. After a few minutes, Annabeth fell into line next to me. Look, her voice faltered. I appreciate you coming back for us, okay? That was really brave. We're a team, right? She was silent for a few more steps. It's just that that if you died, aside from the fact that it would really suck for you, it would mean the quest was over. This may be my only chance to see the real world. The thunderstorm had finally let up. The city glow faded behind us, leaving us in almost total darkness. I couldn't see anything of Annabeth's except a glint of her blonde hair. You haven't left Camp Half-Blood since you were 7, I asked her. No, only short field trips. My dad, the history professor, yeah, it didn't work out for me living at home. I mean, Camp Half-Blood is my home. She was rushing her words out now, as if she was afraid somebody might try to stop her. At camp, you train and train, and that's all cool. And everything. But the real world is where the monsters are. That's where you learn whether you're any good or not. If I didn't know better, I could have sworn I heard doubt in her voice. You're pretty good with that knife, I said. You think so? Anybody who can piggyback like ride a fury is okay by me. I couldn't really see, but I thought she might have smiled. You know, she said, maybe I should tell you something funny back on the bus. Whatever she wanted to say was interrupted by a shrill toot toot toot, like the sound of an owl being tortured. Hey, my reed pipes still work. I could just remembered a fine path song. We could get out of these woods. He puffed out a few notes, but the tune still sounded suspiciously like Hillary Duff. Instead of finding a path, I immediately slammed into a tree and got a nice knot on my head. Add to the list of superpowers I did not have: infrared vision. After tripping and cursing and generally feeling miserable for another mile or so, I started to see light up ahead. Colors of a neon sign. I could smell food. Fried, greasy, excellent food. I realized I hadn't eaten anything unhealthy since I arrived at Camp Half-Blood. Or at Half-Blood Hill. Where we lived on grapes, bread, cheese, and extra lean cut nymph prepared barbecue. This boy needed a double cheeseburger. Agreed. We kept walking till I saw a deserted 2-lane road through the trees. On the other side was a closed-down gas station, a tattered billboard for a 1990s movie, and one open business, which was the source, the neon light, and the good smell. It wasn't a fast food restaurant like I hoped. It was one of those weird roadside curio shops that sell lawn flamingos and wooden Indians and cement grizzly bears and stuff like that. The main building was long, low warehouse, surrounded by acres of statuary. The neon sign above the gate was impossible for me to read, because if there's anything worse for my dyslexia than regular English, it's red cursive neon English. To me, it looked like Antu Mes Gideran Gomen Mifrolium. What the heck does that say? I don't know. She loved reading so much, I'd forgotten she was dyslexic too. Grover translated, Auntie M's Garden Gnome Emporium. Flanking the entrance as advertised were 2 cement garden gnomes, ugly bearded little runs, smiling and waving, as if they were about to get their picture taken. I crossed the street, following the smell of the hamburgers. Hey! The lights are on inside, Annabeth said. Maybe it's open. Snack bar, I said wistfully. Snack bar, she agreed. Are you too crazy? Grover said. This place is weird. We ignored him. The front line was a forest of statues, cement animals, cement children, and even a cement satyr playing the pipes, which gave Grover the creeps. He belted. Looks like my Uncle Ferdinand. He stopped at the warehouse door. Don't knock, Grover pleaded. You smell monsters. Your nose is clogged up from the Furies, Annabeth told him. All I smell is burgers. Aren't you hungry? Meat? He said scornfully. I'm a vegetarian. You eat cheese enchiladas in aluminum cans, I reminded him. Those are vegetables. Come on, let's leave. These statues are looking at me. Then the door creaked open, and standing in front of us was a middle-aged Middle Eastern woman, at least. I assumed she was Middle Eastern because she wore a long black gown that covered everything but her hands, and her head was completely veiled. Her eyes glinted behind a curtain of black gauze, because that was all that I could make out. Her coffee-colored hands looked old, but well manicured and elegant, so I imagined she was a grandmother who had once been a beautiful lady. Her accent sounded vaguely Middle Eastern too. She said, "Children, it's too late to be out. Is it too late to be out all alone? Where are your parents?" They're, Annabeth started to say. We're orphans, I said. Orphans? The woman said. The word sounded alien in her mouth. But, my dear, surely not. We got separated from our caravan, I said. Our circus caravan. The ringmaster told us to meet him at the gas station if we got lost, but we may have forgotten, or maybe he meant a different gas station. Anyways, we're lost. Is that food I smell? Ah, my dears, the woman said. You must come in, poor children. I am Auntie M. Go straight through to the back of the warehouse, please. There is a dining area. We thanked her and went inside. Annabeth muttered to me, Circus caravan? Always have a strategy, right? Your head is full of kelp. The warehouse was filled with more statues, people in all different poses, wearing all different outfits, and with different expressions on their faces. I was thinking you'd have to have a pretty huge garden to fit every one of these statues, because they were all life-size, but mostly I was thinking about food. Go ahead, call me an idiot for walking into a strange lady's shop like that just because I was hungry, but I do impulsive stuff sometimes. Plus, you've never smelled Auntie M's burgers. The aroma was like laughing gas in the dentist chair. It made everything else go away. I barely... Page got stuck. Noticed Grover's nervous whimpers, or the way the statue's eyes seemed to follow me, or the fact that Auntie M had locked the door behind us. All I cared about was finding the dining area, and sure enough, there it was the back of the warehouse. The fast food counter with a grill, a soda fountain, a pretzel heater, and a nacho cheese dispenser. Everything you could want, plus a few steel picnic tables out front. Please sit down, Auntie M said. Awesome, I said. Grover said reluctantly, we don't have any money, ma'am. Before I could jab him in the ribs, Auntie M said, No, children, no money. This is a special case, yes. It is my treat for such nice orphans. Thank you, ma'am, Annabeth said. Auntie M stiffened as if Annabeth had done something wrong, but then the old woman relaxed just as quickly, so I figured it must have been my imagination. Quite all right, Annabeth? She said, You have such beautiful gray eyes, child. Only later did I wonder how she knew Annabeth's name, even though she had never introduced herself. our hostess disappeared behind the snack counter and started cooking before we knew it. She brought us plastic trays heaped with double cheeseburgers, vanilla shakes, and an extra large serving of french fries. I'm not gonna lie, that actually sounds really good right now. Well, I already ate. I was halfway through my burger before I remembered to breathe. Annabeth slurped her shake. Grover picked at the fries and eyed the tray's wax paper line as if he might go for that, but he still looked too nervous to eat. "What's that hissing noise?" he asked. I listened but didn't hear anything. Annabeth shook her head. "Hissing? What is it? Perhaps you hear the deep fryer oil. Perhaps you hear the deep fryer oil. You have keen ears, Grover." "I take vitamins for my ears." "That's admirable," he said. But please relax." Auntie Em ate nothing. She hadn't taken off her headdress, even to cook, and now she was forward and interlaced her fingers and watched us eat. It was a little unsettling having someone stare at me when I couldn't see her face. But I was feeling satisfied after the burger and a little sleepy, and I figured at least I could do was try to make small talk with her hostess. "So, you sell gnomes?" I said, trying to sound interested. "Ah, yes," Auntie Em said. "And animals and people. Anything for the garden. Custom orders. Statuary is very popular, you know." "A lot of business on the road?" "Not so much, no. Since the highway's built, most cars, they do not go this way now. I must cherish every customer I get." My neck tingled as if somebody else was looking at me. I turned, but it was just a statue of a young girl holding an Easter basket. The detail was incredible. Much better than you see in most garden statues. Something was wrong in her face. It looked as if she was startled, or even terrified. "Ah," Auntie Em said. "You notice some of my creations do not turn out so well. They are marred. They do not sell. The face is the hardest to do right. Always the face." "You make these statues yourself?" I asked. "Oh, yes. Once upon a time, I had 2 sisters to help me in the business, but they have passed on, and Auntie Em is alone. I only have my statues. This is what I make them. You see, they are my company." The sadness in her voice sounded so deep and so real that I couldn't help feeling sorry for her. Annabeth had stopped eating. She sat forward and said, "2 sisters?" "It's a terrible story," Auntie Em said. "Not one for children, really. You see, Annabeth, a bad woman was jealous of me long ago. When I was young, I had a boyfriend, you know, and this bad woman was determined to break us apart. She caused a terrible accident. My sisters stayed by me. They shared my bad fortune as long as they could, but eventually they passed on. They faded away. I was alone, have survived, but at a price. Such a price." I wasn't sure what she meant, but I felt bad for her. My eyelids kept getting heavier, my full stomach making me sleepy. Poor old lady. Who would want to hurt somebody so nice? "Percy?" Annabeth was shaking me to get my attention. "Maybe we should go. I mean, the ringmaster will be waiting." She sounded tense. I wasn't sure why. Girl was eating the wax paper off the tray now, but if Auntie Em found that strange, she didn't say anything. "Such beautiful gray eyes," Auntie Em told Annabeth. Again. "My yes, it has been a long time since I've seen gray eyes like those." She reached out as if to stroke Annabeth's cheek, but Annabeth stood up abruptly. We really should go. Yes. Grover swallowed the wax paper and stood up. The ringmaster is waiting, right? I didn't want to leave. I felt full and content. Auntie Em was so nice. I wanted to stay with her for a while. Please, dears, Auntie Em pleaded. I so rarely get to be with children. Before you go, won't you at least sit for a pose? A pose? Annabeth asked worryingly. A photograph. I will use it as a model. A new statue set. Children are so popular, see. Everyone loves children. Annabeth shifted her weight foot to foot. I don't think we can, ma'am. Come on, Percy. Sure we can, I said. I was irritated with Annabeth for being so bossy, so rude to an old lady who just fed us for free. It's just a photo, Annabeth. What's the harm? Yes, Annabeth, the woman purred. No harm. I could tell Annabeth didn't like it, but she allowed Auntie Em to lead us back out the front door into the garden of statues. Auntie Em directed us to a park bench next to the stone satyr. Now, she said, I'll just position you correctly. The young girl in the middle, I think, and the two young gentlemen on either side. Not much light for a photo, I remarked. Oh, enough, Auntie Em said. Even for us to see each other, yes. Where's your camera? Grover asked. Auntie Em stepped back as if to admire the shot. Now the face is the most difficult. Can you smile for me, please, everyone? A large smile. Grover glanced at the cement satyr next to him and mumbled, That does look like Uncle Ferdinand. Grover, he chastised, look this way, dear. He still had no camera in her hands. Percy, Annabeth said. Some instinct warned me to listen to Annabeth, but I was fighting the sleeping feeling, the comfortable lull that came from the food and the old lady's voice. I will just be a moment, Auntie Em said. You know, I can't see very well in this cursed veil. Percy, something's wrong. Wrong? Auntie Em said, reaching up to undo the wrap around her head. Not at all, dear. I have such noble company tonight. What could be wrong? That is my Uncle Ferdinand. Look away from her, Annabeth shouted. She whipped out her Yankees cap over her head and vanished. Her invisible hands pushed Grover and me both off the bench. I was on the ground looking at Auntie Em's sandaled feet. I could hear Grover scrambling off in one direction, Annabeth another, but I was too dazed to move. But then I heard a strange rasping sound above me. My eyes soared to Auntie Em's head, which had turned gnarled and warty, and with sharp bronze talons for fingernails. I almost looked higher, but somewhere off to my left, Annabeth screamed, No, don't! More rasping, the sound of tiny snakes right above me from about where Auntie Em's head would be. Run, Grover belted. I heard him racing across the gravel, yelling, Maya! To kickstart his flying sneakers. I couldn't move. I stared at Auntie Em's gnarled claws and tried to fight the groggy trance the old woman had put me in. Such a pity to destroy a handsome young face, she told me soothingly. Stay with me, Percy. All you have to do is look up. I fought the urge to obey. Instead, I looked to one side and saw one of those glass spheres people put in gardens, a gazing ball. I could see Auntie Em's dark reflection in the orange glass. Her headdress was gone, revealing her face as a shimmering, pale circle. Her hair was moving, writhing like serpents. Auntie Em. Auntie Em. How could I have been so stupid? think, I told myself. How did Medusa die in the myth? But I couldn't think. Something told me that in the myth Medusa had been asleep when she was attacked by my namesake, Perseus. Oh, so there's some irony there. She wasn't anywhere near asleep now. If she wanted, she could take those talons right off and rack them open my face. The Great Eye One did this to me, Percy, Medusa said, and she didn't sound anything like a monster. Her voice invited me to look up, to sympathize with a poor old grandmother, Annabeth's mother. The accursed Athena turned me from a beautiful woman to this. Don't listen to her, Annabeth's voice shouted somewhere in the statuary. Run, Percy. Silence, Medusa snarled. Then her voice modulated back to a comforting purr. You see why I must destroy the girl, Percy? She is my enemy's daughter. I shall crush her statue to dust. But you, dear Percy, you need not suffer. No, I muttered. I tried to make my legs move. Do you really want to help the gods? Medusa asked. Do you understand what awaits you in this foolish quest, Percy? What will happen if you reach the underworld? Do not be a pawn of the Olympians, my dear. You would be better off as a statue. Less pain, less pain. Percy, behind me, I heard a buzzing sound, like a two-headed, 200-pound hummingbird in a nosedive. Grover yelled, Duck! I turned, and there in the night sky, flying from 12 o'clock with his winged shoes fluttering Grover, holding a tree branch the size of a baseball bat. His eyes were shut tight. His head twitched from side to side. He was navigating by ears and nose alone. Duck! He yelled again. I'll get her. That finally jolted me into action. Knowing Grover, I was sure he'd miss Medusa nail at me. I dove to one side. Thwack! At first I figured it was the sound of Grover hitting a tree. Then Medusa roared with rage. You miserable satyr, she snarled. I'll add you to my collection. That was for Uncle Ferdinand, Grover yelled back. I scrambled away and hid in the statuary while Grover swooped down for another pass. Kwhack! Medusa yelled, her snake hair hissing and spinning snake-like. 'Cause, that's what they do. Right next to me, Annabeth's voice said, Percy, I jumped so high my feet nearly cleared a garden gnome. Jeez, don't do that. Annabeth took off her Yankees cap and became visible. You have to cut her head off. What? Are you crazy? Let's get out of here. Medusa is a menace. She's evil. I'd kill her myself, but Annabeth swallowed as if she were about to make a difficult admission. But you've got the better weapon. Besides, I never get close to her. She'd slice me to bits because of my mother. You've got a chance. What? I can't. Look, do you want her turning more innocent people into statues? She pointed to a pair of statue lovers, a man and a woman, with their arms around each other, turned to stone by the monster. Annabeth grabbed a green gazing ball from a nearby pedestal. A polished shield would be better. She studied the sphere critically. The convexity will cause some distortion, but reflection's size should be off by a factor of... Would you speak English? I am. She tossed me the glass ball. Just look at her in glass. Never look at her directly. Hey guys, Grover yells somewhere above us. I think she's unconscious. Roar. Maybe not. Grover corrected. She went for another pass with a tree branch. Hurry, Annabeth told me. Grover's got a great nose, but he'll eventually crash. I took up my pen and uncapped it. The bronze blade of Riptide elongated in my hand. I followed the hissing and spitting sounds of Medusa's hair. I kept my eyes locked on the gazing ball so I would only glimpse Medusa's reflection, not the real thing. Then, the green tinted glass, I saw her. Grover was coming in from another turn to bat, but this time he flew a little too low. Medusa grabbed the stick and pulled him off the course. He tumbled through the air and crashed into the arms of a stoned grizzly bear with a painful oof. Medusa was about to lunge at him when I yelled, "Hey!" I advanced on her, which wasn't easy, holding a sword and a glass ball. If she charged, I'd have a hard time defending myself. She let me approach, 20 feet, 10 feet. I could see the reflection on her face now. Surely it wasn't really that ugly. The green swirls of the great gazing ball must be distorting it, making it look worse. "You wouldn't harm an old woman, Percy," she groaned. "I know you wouldn't." I hesitated, fascinated by the face I saw reflected in the glass, the eyes that seemed to burn straight through the green tint, making my arms go weak. From the cement grizzly bear, Grover moaned, "Percy, don't listen to her." Medusa cackled, "Too late." She lunged at me with her talons. I slashed up with my sword, heard a sickening schlock, then a hiss like wind rushing out of the cavern, the sound of a monstrous disintegrating. Something fell to the ground next to my foot. It took all my willpower not to look. I could feel warm ooze soaking onto my sock. Little dying snake heads tugging my shoelaces. "Ah, yuck," Grover said. His eyes were still tightly closed, but I guess you could hear the thing gurgling and screaming, "Mega yuck." Annabeth came next to me, her eyes fixed on the night, on the sky. She was holding Medusa's black veil. She said, "Don't move." Very, very carefully, without looking down, she knelt and draped the monster's head in the black cloth, then picked it up. It was still dripping green juice. "Are you okay?" she asked me, her voice trembling. "Yeah," I decided, though I felt like throwing up my double cheeseburger. Why didn't the head evaporate? "Once you sever it, it becomes a spoil of war," she said. "Same as the Minotaur arm, but don't unwrap the head. It can still petrify you." Grover moaned as he climbed down from the grisly statue. He had a big welt on his forehead. The green rasta cap hung from one of the little goat horns, and his fake feet had been knocked off his hooves. The magic seekers were flying aimlessly around his head. "The Red Baron," I said. "Good job, man." He managed a bashful grin. "That really was not fun, though. Well, the hitting her with a stick part, that was fun. But crashing into the concrete bear, not fun." He snatched his shoes out of the air and recapped my sword. Together, the three of us stumbled back into the warehouse. We found some old plastic grocery bags behind the snack counter and double-wrapped Medusa's head. We plopped it on the table where we'd eaten dinner and sat around, too exhausted to speak. I only said, "So we have Athena to thank for this monster." Annabeth flashed me an irritated look. "Your dad, actually. Don't you remember? Medusa was Poseidon's girlfriend. They decided to meet in my mother's temple. That's why Athena turned her into a monster. Medusa and her two sisters who had helped her get into the temple, they became the three Gorgons. That's why Medusa wanted to slice me up. But she wanted to preserve you as a nice statue. She's still sweet on your dad. You probably reminded her of him." My face was burning. "Oh, so now it's my fault we met Medusa." Annabeth straightened in a bad intention in my voice. She said, "It's just a photo, Annabeth. What's the harm?" "Forget it," I said. "You're impossible. You're insufferable. You're—" "Hey," Grover interrupted. You two are giving me a migraine, and satyrs don't even get migraines. What are we going to do with the head? I stared at the thing. One little snake was hanging out of the hole in the plastic. The words printed on the side of the bag said, "We appreciate your business." I was angry, not just with Annabeth, or her mom, but with all the gods for this whole quest, for getting us blown off the road and in 2 major fights the very first day of our camp. At this rate, we never make it to LA alive, much less before the summer solstice. What had Medusa said? Do not be a pawn of the Olympians, my dear. You would be better off as a statue. Yep. I'll be back. Percy, Annabeth called me. What are you? I searched the back of the warehouse and I found Medusa's office. Her count book showed her 6 most recent sales, all shipments to the underworld, to decorate Hades and Persephone's garden. According to one freight bill, the underworld's billing address was DOA Recording Studios, West Hollywood, California. I folded up the bill and stuffed it in my pocket. In the cash register, I found $20, a few gold drachmas, and some packing slips for Hermes Overnight Express, each with a little leather bag attached for coins. I rummaged around the rest of the office until I found the right box size. I went back to the picnic table, packed up Medusa's head, and filled out a delivery slip. The Gods, Mount Olympus, 600th floor, Empire State Building, New York City. With best wishes, Percy Jackson. They're not going to like that, Grover warned. They'll think you're impertinent. I poured some gold drachmas in the pouch. As soon as I closed it, there was the sound of a cash register. The package floated off the table and disappeared with a pop. I am impertinent. I looked at Annabeth, daring her to criticize. She didn't. She seemed resigned to the fact that I had a major talent for ticking off the gods. Come on, she muttered. We need a new plan. And with that, we are done with chapter 11, and we'll be finishing up the stream here today, ladies and gentlemen. We have had a progressive little read of this fun little adventure of one of my favorite books growing up as a kid. So, this will be the end of our stream today. So, thank you for listening, watching, and all that. And we'll be rating someone else momentarily. So, until then, have a nice day, everybody.